All right, can everyone hear me all right? All right, my name is Noah Watts, and I came down with UPT. So I'm the one that's pretty much in between you, food, break, and everything else. So I'm going to skip kind of the introduction. But if anything, I will say this. I'm an average skydiver. I look amongst the group here, and I'm pretty much going to guarantee that some of you guys are a whole lot better than I am. But what I'm really, really good at is doctrine. Okay? So with that being said, we're going to go into a couple things. I know I have that up right now, but we're going to show a video. Everyone loves videos, of course, and then we'll go into the main PowerPoint. What I want to do is get to 9, all right? And when I say doctrine, my doctrine is a little bit different than your guys' doctrine, all right? The manufacturer is different than your guys' actual DZ and some of the things that rules and everything you guys have to follow. But let's get to 9. So what's 6 plus 3? I gave you the answer, yeah. What's 6 plus 3? 9, all right? What's 5 plus 4? 9. Ultimately, we want to get to 9, all right? And with the education, it's one of the main reasons why we're here. That's one of the things that we can actually do with this, all right? So I like to also reference 4 stages of learning. The 4 stages of learning that I like to think about, if you think about whenever you learned anything new, right? We went in with that confidence. We sat down. What we have there experience is unconscious incompetence. We just don't know what we don't know, all right? By the end of the course, or at least halfway through the course, especially that first day, we have conscious incompetence. We just figured out we don't know a lot, all right? Preferably by the end of the course, we should end with, you know, conscious competence, to where we know what's right, we know what we're supposed to do, which is he's helping me with that one. We know what's right, we know what's supposed to do, everything's going well, right? And hopefully it'd be great if it was right at the end of that course, but for the most time it happens, you know, a little bit later on with a little bit of that time and experience and help from others, but we kind of go to unconscious competence, to where we're doing the right thing without having to think about it. Does that all make sense? All right? The problem with that is whenever, and for the most part, we should all, in a sense, be in that position. All right? We should all be doing the things or the right things without really having to think about it. But where that kind of gets us in trouble is obviously things change, things get different. So I encourage you, or I challenge you guys as leaders, as professionals, as, you know, pretty much everything that's been leading up to here, or to this talk right now with all the previous discussions, is to take yourself outside of the unconscious, you know, competence and put yourself back into the conscious competence. All right? It is good to learn things new. It is good to reevaluate the things that you guys pretty much know that already is, but it could have changed. Okay? What is your guys', or what's acceptable to you guys? All right? So I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, not as much interaction. I do apologize for that, but again, for a lot of time-wise, that's kind of how we're going to have to be flexible and run it. Throughout this whole entire thing, there's not like a right or a wrong in a sense. None of this is to point fingers, blame, or anything like that. But some of the questions I want you guys to just think amongst yourselves is, what are you personally fine with, or what is an acceptable loss to you? Whether it's within the industry itself, whether it's at your drop zone, specific drop zone, or your own personal, what is acceptable to you? Okay, is it someone scratched themselves? Is it a broken ankle, a sprain? Is it you being hurt versus the student? And most of this, what I'm pretty much talking about, is mainly tandems, but a lot of this does flow over into other disciplines as well. All right, with that, all right, and what is an acceptable thing for you guys is the tandem influence, okay? The question was already asked before of, you know, how many tandem instructors we have. We have some AFF, we probably have pilots, riggers, we have multiple, you know, people. But when it comes down to it, tandems in themselves, the influence of tandems is huge. If you think about it, the picture that's right there on the wall, all right, I didn't put it there, I walked in, but that right there has an influence towards tandems. Someone's going to walk in, someone's going to see that, all right, and not necessarily here specifically, but at a drop zone or some flyer, someone might see that, or someone skydiving on YouTube, on TV, it doesn't matter, and they're like, I want to do that. They might figure out how much it costs, and they might say, well, I can't necessarily do that just yet, but I want to go on a tandem. or I want to be able to do something like that. Some of the AFF instructors, how many people did AFF after doing a tandem? Quite a few? Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, you do have those some people that jump into tandems, or I'm sorry, jump into AFF that have never done a tandem. Is there anyone here that's a tandem instructor that did not do a tandem for the first jump? Absolutely. And look at you guys now. All right, you're doing tandems. Okay. Now, all of this kind of actually falls into opinion versus fact. And if pretty much this entire weekend, or especially this particular class or presentation, gets you guys to think about, just get you thinking, that's primarily what I want. All right. So whether it's my opinion, my fact, your fact, it doesn't really matter. If it sparks the conversation, if it sparks that you want to, further your education on something or just get better at, that's the primary thing that we're looking for. All right, let's go ahead and watch the couple of videos really fast. Now, you guys have probably seen these videos, which is just fine. Now, anyone can pretty much quarterback Friday night's game Saturday morning, all right? Meaning you already see the outcome, you already know what either went right, wrong. Everyone has their possible opinions as to what the state of mind of someone was, all right? But right now, I mean, there's plenty of things that we can think about. What were the wind conditions? Did he paint himself into a corner? He's in deep brakes pretty much the entire time. Is he letting the flight cycle of the canopy happen? Did he do a too tight of a turn? Did he give himself enough flare for the tandem itself? All right, in that video, pretty much there was a hip broken, tailbone broken, so a lot of bad things that happened on that video. Sorry about that. Hold on a second. Here we go. All right. So what we're going to do right now is, you just get this big screen really quick. Yeah, I did have it before. Just like most things, right when you want it. This should be a slideshow. Unless it does something else. Good? Oh, gotcha. All right, technology at its finest. All right, so with that last video, all right, that was a tandem student that got hit by a coming in tandem. All right, so in a sense, the tandem's not done or the jump is not done until that passenger is safely, either passed over to someone on the ground or off of the drop zone, things like that. All right, we're going to talk about pretty much, the canopy flight itself to avoid situations of both videos in itself. All right, some of the key factors we're going to talk about: skill, communication, which is a very, very big one, landing patterns, inducing speed to land, landings themselves, the canopy size, wing loading, turbulence, and when the course to stand down, and of course the conclusion. Skill. All right, tandem canopies are not sport canopies. In a sense, they are also not accuracy canopies that, you know, come straight down onto like a tuffet as well. They need speed, they need proper flight, they need a proper flare. All right. So with people flying a tandem canopy like it's a sport canopy, oscillating, whipping turns, especially close to the ground, that's not what we're wanting. That's not what's needed. Everyone can pretty much always see a negative outcome from someone that is flying a canopy outside of the envelope that is designed to actually do. False sense of security. All right. The ego. How many people here are good tandem instructors or good canopy pilots, good skydivers? Why am I the only one raising my hand? All right. Everyone here is good. Okay. But ego. All right. Had a saying one time, ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. All right. We have individuals that think they're great, think they're good. They might get away with something one time or two times, and then they start to think, oh, well, I'm just that good. All right. And instead of doing the right thing, they get, you know, caught in that false sense of security of that it's skill when it's really not. All right. Prorated instructors. And of course, canopy coaching. A prorated instructor, everyone knows what those are, but how many people can actually land a tandem exactly where they want to land it? More importantly, those educators, how many people can teach someone how to land a tandem exactly where they want it? Almost as if it was an AFF or a student canopy to be able to, you know, based on the winds and the conditions, say, hey, this is where you're pretty much going to hold up. This is where you're going to do your downwind, your base, and your final. I challenge you guys to actually do that. Call your landing, call your pattern before you actually have to get up and go do it. And then see how close you are to the altitudes, to, you know, the points where you say that you're going to make your turn, and actually how close you guys land to where you want to land. All right, it's an actual, not just a skill, but it's a perishable skill. And it's a skill that can actually, you know, be looked at amongst each other, helped out, and, you know, you guys can help each other, they can help you. It's a big just scenario that is not looked at as much as it should be. All right, communication. Within this communication, we have ground to air, air to air, which is probably one of the most important, and of course, tandem the video. All right. What's the amount of numbers that you guys, I see you do a lot of hand cam, but what's the amount of numbers that you have outside video? Is it very much?
About 60%.
A fair?
Yeah, 60-70%.
Okay, great. So ground to air. All right. How many times you guys, someone on the ground, the wind spike up or anything like that, that they actually call up to the aircraft and let the pilot know? Does it happen quite a bit? Yeah. Does it happen to the point to where the pilot actually is able to pass it back to the jumpers? Because sometimes that doesn't happen. All right. So if the place, or if that kind of procedure's in place, that's a good thing. If it's not, maybe it's something that, you know, someone wants to look at. There's nothing worse than getting out of the aircraft and knowing that, you know, the only thing you can do is make that jump as least eventful as possible, because if you would have known the information, you would have stayed in the aircraft. All right. One thing that actually is to think about is that's not just for if you have AFS students on the plane or tandem students on the plane. That's a practice that should pretty much be sent up no matter really who's on the plane. All right, air to air. All right, it's probably one of the most important ones, especially for tandems, because I know Tom Noonan did a couple of presentations where the key part of the presentation was two bodies cannot operate the same space at the same time. It's still true today, all right? So some canopy issues when people are coming in or flying in, whether it's tandems, tandem on tandem, tandem in video, and sometimes even tandem with AFF students, because obviously everyone's kind of opening up high at the same time. And some of the worst things impossible to have is a tandem instructor coming in and seeing a student, because I always think that student just does not see me. Right in front of them, they still didn't see me. All right, they have so many other things going on in their mind, but that air-to-air communication is a big thing. So especially with tandems or tandem to tandem, you know, everyone pretty much knows we're flying. We have that eye-to-eye communication or whatever. You know, I kick my leg like this or whatever. What does that pretty much mean? You see me, right? or I see you. If you get it back, then you have that two-way communication that you guys see each other. If I go like this with the toggles, what am I doing? What's that?
Flying straight.
Well, you're slowing yourself down, all right? You're going in breaks, you're trying to slow yourself down, you're trying to create that separation, all right? Another thing that might even possible, if I'm going to go like this, if I'm automatically going to hold, I try kicking one leg down. I'm trying to tell them, hey, I'm holding for you, you take a circle, go down. All right, we're going to talk about pre-declared or predetermined order, but we all know that sometimes variables happen. I might have that student that's just like, hey, I just don't feel good. So what am I now doing? Trying not, to get anything on me or that student getting sick or anything. So I will fly that canopy, flat, dumb, and happy, all the way down to the ground to make it, again, as least eventful as possible. So orders might have to change. So with that communication, that's what you're wanting amongst, the other canopy pilots in the air. Tandem the video, all right? What'd you just call me? I say that because it's, I've actually been educated by Jeff. I asked a couple of questions, which was actually good, of the diameter of where you guys are, how far you're allowed to fly. Who here of those been under canopy and you look down, you're looking down and you look way over there and that's where your landing area is, all right? Sometimes you do end up a little bit further. If you would have known that, you probably would have opened up a little bit higher, all right? Now, I don't know everyone's communication with their video person if they do have one, but sometimes I've seen this, we're long. Anyone ever seen that? All right, and then on the video that everyone else sees on YouTube and everything else, someone's wondering why the tandem instructor just called them a loser, all right? So it's just different communication. You can do multiple things. You can be like, hey, spot's long, spot's good, looking down, whatever, all right? But ultimately, it's the communication between you and that video person because you might end up saying, hey, I'm going to open or deploy high. If I know I'm long, I'm going to deploy high, all right? Where do all these things kind of accumulate or culminate to is the canopy, all right? Getting where we need to be and, of course, being able to get up and walk away safely. Landing patterns. We have predetermined, predictable, pre-established order, hanging out, know the wind cone, and of course we have that express elevator. Some of you guys may have kind of seen some of this before, but again, we're trying to, actually all of this should be pretty much something that everyone's seen, but hopefully you're getting it presented a little bit a different way, or again, it gets us just thinking about the things that, we kind of forget or get accustomed to or comfortable with, and then complacency normally happens. But predetermined, all right? If I'm in the plane with 2 or 3 other individuals, we might say, hey, I'm going to land first, or my passenger wants the full ride. They want it to feel like a roller coaster. They want to get down as fast as possible. Okay. The other person might say, I'm not going down as fast. I have someone that's, a little bit more fragile, whatever. Have that predetermined. Hey, I got the big guy. I got the little guy. I'll hold up, whatever. All right. Again, it's communication with everyone. Be predictable. All right. Especially with the landing pattern. As much high up in the air is not as more important as close to the ground. Obviously, again, that base to final. Because base to final is what? Probably one of the more dangerous places considering everyone's trying to converge on the one spot. All right? So, of course, at that time, we like to call it, APT, altitude position traffic, head on a swivel. We're looking for all the other people. That way we can have that communication. Again, the pre-established order, hanging out, all right? Don't be afraid, again, to hang out, to know the situation, to count canopies, all right? If I know I have 3 tandems on there and 1 student, I'm pretty much looking for, 4 canopies besides myself in the air with me. I try to count whichever ones are, especially that student canopy, all right? But know your surroundings, know who's in the air with you, and try to have that communication. Know the wind cone, all right? If the winds are extremely high, obviously, pretty much this is the area that you're allowed to work with. When the winds are low, it's a whole lot bigger. It doesn't really matter where you are in the sky. But when those winds are higher, all right, because you're checking the winds and everything else, not only do you want to know where you're at or be within the wind cone, being upwind, but you want to be to the high side of the wind cone. Most times the wind doesn't just blow in the same direction all the way up. It's blowing this way, on the ground, but it's blowing from over here up at altitude. So the high side of the wind cone for me would be on that side, and that's where I want to be, because the uppers are going to blow me down here to where the lower winds are then going to blow me onto target. All right, so that makes sense pretty much to everybody. But just know where you're at or where you want to be. The pilot might get told that he has to fly this way because to avoid another aircraft, all right? The winds are projected, all right, and they ended up being differently. Have a plan as to where you need to be or want to be and where you're going to fly before even going up into the plane. All right, and then we all know about the express elevator being that individual that just wants to spiral down, get down first, no matter where they're at, no matter what the order is, they just, whatever their reason is, they want to get down. All right, so obviously they're probably the most dangerous person on the plane or, you know, on that load because they're not only the most non-predictable, except for the fact that they want to land first, but they're the ones that might not see, might not be looking for you because they only have the one goal in mind. All right? All right, inducing speed to land. I'm sure we can all pretty much agree that sink surge and a carving turn are good things. Hopefully we all agree that the toggle whipping and hook turns are not. Who here uses a sink surge? Anyone? Who here uses a carving turn? Okay, who here uses both? It all depends on the situation. Some of those situations could be wind. Some of those situations can be where am I? All right, how am I getting back? The weight of the passenger in front of me. All right, it could be where am I at within the stack? All right, so there's a lot of different things that, you know, go into the sink surge or the carving turn and everything else. Does everyone pretty much understand both of those things? All right, pretty much? Awesome. What I am going to explain, though, is with the sink surge. Okay, it's maybe a way to explain it to some of the younger tandem instructors. Everyone pretty much knows that, you know, I'm at full flight, I'm coming in, I'm just sinking down, and then to get that surge up, most people just let up. Canopy goes through its flight cycle, right? And it's more of a timing thing. It's that kind of, you know, judgment call it like, you know, whatever wire you're on, or just that sight picture of what you see, and it takes a little bit of practice. In beginning the sink surge, though, what I am going to suggest or encourage is that when you're coming down, everything's good, you're right here, and when you let up to get that surge, don't just let up. That letting up process should be a slow at first and almost letting the canopy itself pull the toggles up. All right, that's going to keep that canopy pressurized versus just letting it up and the canopy having to surge forward extremely fast. All right, I'm going to hit that more, a little bit more in a second when it comes to giving a proper flare. Oh, no toggle whipping, no hook turns. All right, we're all pretty much good on that. What is the worst thing about a toggle turn or you know, toggle whipping? Exactly, you're underneath, and where's the canopy? It's no longer above you. All right, so ultimately we want to keep that canopy above us the entire time. With a carving turn, it's not as much, or, you know, it's more than over here, but again, we want to have the control of that canopy. All right, landing, slide in versus stand up, running out, or the AKA the tabletop. All right, that's kind of when you're kind of running or standing and the person does not, and now you're either coming over that passenger or you're pretty much either following on them and everything else. We already learned a little bit before with the statistics and everything of how that's a bad thing. Your size versus size of the passenger. Larger weight on smaller person doesn't really equal good at all times. All right, and of course finishing your flare. Again, we'll talk about that. But a slide-in landing, sometimes that's the best, sometimes a stand-up landing is the best. All right, for the most part, running out in the tabletop is not always the best. That's the most probably unpredictable landing, just due to the fact that we are not quadrupeds. I cannot think to my passengers' feet and make them move. If I could, I assure you I'd be doing a whole lot more cooler things with them, just like almost like a marionette or however. All right, but since that's not happening, slide-in landings is probably one of the more safer ones, depending if you have the ability to, or the ground, you know, smooth, doesn't have a lot of knolls of grass, not rocky or anything like that. All right, so strive for a slide-in landing. Stand up if the winds are good, or if the conditions are the fact that, you know, hey, that's your best option because sliding in might be, you know, painful or not the appropriate choice if you had to land off somewhere. All right, but basically when it comes down to either slide-in landing or stand-up landing, know your body position. As you're coming in, a lot of times when you're leaning forward, that's where a lot of your weight's going to go. So coming in, whether I'm wanting to stand up, kind of surf, and then finish that flare to pop us up, or if I'm coming in for that slide-in landing, remember with you leaning back, that pitches up the student's feet a little bit more. You're pushing through with your hips, allowing them also to pitch up a little bit more. So as your legs are coming in, you can take that stand-up landing that just wasn't all that good and turn it into that sitting landing because the passenger's legs are already up and you're just leaning back in the first place to then that way they land on you. All right? All right, finishing your flare. Pretty much for argument's sake, from here to here is a full flare, correct? All right. What we want though is we want to finish or we want to have 100% of a flare because we're all experienced enough to know that in high winds, I am not going to go from here all the way down to here. All right. We want 100% of an effective flare. That's the most important. An effective flare is finishing your flare. All right. So if to complete and effectively finish the flare, it comes all the way down here, maybe on light winds, that's what we want. If it's only to here, we want that 100% of an effective flare. Where that sink surge comes into a problematic or somewhat of a problem is when we let that canopy all the way up, we now, of course, depressurize the canopy. It has to go through its flight cycle, all right? And then we try digging out all the way, but there's nothing there, okay? I would rather have on that effective flare because as I'm slowly letting it up and I figure out I need to finish a flare, I have a pressurized canopy. So I would say from here to here, maybe 25%, right? So 100% of 75 is a whole lot better, right, than say trying to, you let your canopy up and it's no longer pressurized, right? So I might have 100% flare, but it's not effective. So that 100% is only maybe 35% effective because the canopy is not pressurized, all right? So I'd rather have 75% of that fully effective flare with that pressurization than not. Does that make sense? All right? So bottom line, with the big thing about finishing your flare because you want that 100% effective flare, depending on winds, depending on location, depending on am I standing, am I sliding in, all right? All right, canopy sizes. Obviously, there's a large assortment of canopy sizes. With canopy sizes, though, and of course, changing your wing loading, going heavy in winds, all right, obviously, we want that wing loading to get us through and penetrate through the air. And of course, planning for success with the weight versus size. If I'm going to have that small instructor, I want to give them, the heavier passenger in heavy winds. Same things with that, heavier instructor, maybe give them the lighter passenger in the heavy winds. We want to give the entire, plane load the best chances of everyone making it back, all right? Now, with changes of canopy size, I also want you guys to take into mind the different types of canopies. You have other canopies out there that are being used. You have other rigs that are out there being used. How many tandem instructors are multi-rig rated? You have a few, all right? You're in a busy day, it's hot out, you didn't hydrate enough, you're still going, you're feeling good, everything's great, you're talking to the passenger, you grab one rig, the next, parachute or the next jump, you grab a different rig, all right? Be mindful of the rigs that you're using, be mindful of the canopies that you're using or that you might receive within that rig, all right? And with that, again, conditions, size of the passenger, there's so many different things and factors that go into what makes your guys' decisions under canopy and, of course, ultimately being able to have a safe landing onto the ground. All right, turbulence in the air and then on the ground. A big thing for on the ground, most everyone, hey, we know what the turbulence is on the ground, all right? You have buildings, you have trees, you have heat from, water versus tarmac or hot asphalt, and then, of course, the temperature or even turbulence from the aircraft that just took off, all right, if you have to land close to a runway or anything like that. I also want you guys to think about the air-to-air turbulence when traveling behind that other tandem. Say, for instance, hey, everything worked out well. You know, you tried your best to have that communication and to create that separation and to be able to have one landing after another versus landing or coming in at the same time. With all the trying, with all the communication, hey, luck just didn't happen just right because of however you came around with your pattern. All right, everything was predictable. Everyone did a left-hand traffic pattern, but you end up on the same level at the same time. All right, something to think about with that communication. You're looking around, you see someone that's on level with you, but you're just that little bit lower. All right, lower jumper for the most part has a right of way, correct? But that doesn't mean that lower jumper can't help the upper jumper. Instead of that lower jumper just taking that lane of where they were going to go, maybe they can shift over a little bit to the right and share the lane, make it a multi-lane highway versus a one-lane road. All right? Don't make that other canopy have to not only, you know, go further to try to make it, because they don't want to do a real sharp turn, you know, close to the ground. They have to be able to widen it out some. Don't make them go extremely wide to now they're trading, you know, length for the altitude and they're getting lower to the ground. Their chances are running out. But they also have to, again, think about going behind your canopy and behind your burble. All right? So that's just part of the teamwork, part of knowing the situation, and of course, obviously experience with, you know, the canopies, canopy flight, and what you have going on. All right. Mark and educate. All right? Things that we're doing right now, the younger tandem instructors, help them not paint themselves into a bad position or, you know, put themselves in a situation where they don't have the experience to get out. There's a lot of things going on. They didn't think about the other options to do. All right, so just help educate with those things. And of course, prepare for alternate areas. That should be done before you get on the airplane. You should know the areas around. If you go to a different drop zone or if you go to different, you know, altitudes, we already saw one of the statistics that there was an incident that happened. That person didn't normally jump there. All right? Get the aerial photos, know what the winds are, know the other people that you're jumping with in the plane, or at least a situation. All right? Be a defensive, not just necessarily an offensive flyer. All right, when to stand down. Define your limits before, you know, reaching them. Who's the jump really for? All right? If you take any jump, whether it's a tandem, instructor, or AFF, or anything, all right, there should be three things you normally ask yourselves. One, is it within doctrine? If it's not within doctrine, that should make it really, really easy. You don't have to do the jump or you don't have to do whatever. Two, who's the jump really for? Is it for me and my ego, or is it for the tandem passenger? All right? And then, of course, is the juice worth the squeeze? That might be, you know, that comfort level of you. Say you have someone that is, has some kind of physical, you know, problem. They're an amputee or something, to where you have that newer instructor that says, hey, my experience level isn't necessarily there, so I'm going to pass it off to someone else. All right? Or you have that conversation with someone. Is everything fall in line to where your experience is good, it's within doctrine, and of course, you know, the juice is worth that squeeze. It's for that passenger, and we can legitimately can do it. All right? If you think about those three things, then it really shouldn't be a problem to find out who that jump really is for. All right? Base limits obviously on conditions, experience, and canopy selection. All right? The winds, the size of the person. All right, we've talked about before of, you know, we don't want to say no, all right, but we can say, hey, just not today, all right, whether the conditions have to change, being the wind, the size of the individual, or the experience of the instructors you have on staff, all right. It's always, again, better to wish you were in the ground jumping than be in the, you know, in the air wishing that you were on the ground. All right, don't make a show of it. All right, we've all had, you know, I'm not going to lie, I've done it before in my younger instructor, you know, days where you get that experience where you're like going, I'm not going to jump. I see that, you know, the winds are extremely bad, and we have all these experienced people sitting down on the ground, and the young ones, you know, kind of go up, and then everyone goes out and watches the chaos, the carnage. Everyone's like, you know, taking bets on human dominoes as the, you know, bingo, whatever the game is called, to see how many people fall, get drugged, or whatever. All right? Doing that, you have everybody else also doing that, being, passengers, family, and everything else. And what are they doing? Everyone's videoing it. All right? Now, are they videoing it because they seen the same stuff that you're thinking of? Not necessarily. They could just be an innocent, I'm videoing because I want to see my friend or my family member come in. But then, of course, they're also hearing all the comments that are being said by, the instructors are saying the reason why they're not going up or anything like that. Everyone has their personal minimums. I considered myself, especially in my last job, highly competent and highly, experienced. And if I didn't want to jump, it could just be I was feeling off that day. It didn't matter. It didn't mean that someone else couldn't jump. It didn't mean, whatever. Obviously, some of the things that should be going on within your guys' DZs or within the staff is if there are some concerns, bring it up. The instructor should be talking. The instructor should be talking and maybe go to that chief instructor and say, hey, we've hit our limit. We've all, been experiencing some canopy, fluctuations, some turbulence, everything else. We want to make the call, all right, or whatever. But of course, with this communication and with these calls that are made, knowing each other's limitations or just a limitation based on, experience, a selection, the conditions, obviously we're doing that in a different room, away from, spectators, away from pretty much, even if it's just a regular up jumper that wants to go out and have some fun. Because quite frankly, that conversation might not necessarily have to involve them when it comes to passengers and students. All right, tandem videographers. And should be less than 5 minutes, guys. All right, spotting the aircraft. Spot the aircraft for the entire load, specifically for, your tandem. If I'm going to, as a tandem instructor, I want to be, again, in communication with that video person. They know me, I know them, I know what exits they're going to do. We have that, eye-to-eye communication before exiting, whatever. One of the good things when it comes to actual predetermined, placement or order, maybe have, again, the heavy people up front for tandems, but also think about having, if those people are getting video, why are they going to be way in the back, especially if that video person has that sub 100 canopy, whatever, for whatever reason, all right? Set yourselves up for success to have the least amount of canopies flying through to the landing area or through those tandem canopies to get back to the landing area. Maybe put those that have outside video out first, then heaviest to smallest, or however. All right, but just, again, have that communication and have a plan. Again, the in-flight with tandem canopies. And, of course, landing area influence. All right, allow that video person to set you up for success. I've seen extremely way too many times where you have a good tandem instructor, and what's a good tandem instructor going to do? That's going to land at the video person, right? But what happens when that video person lands and they're not necessarily thinking about the 2 or 3 other canopies that landed? They're behind me, not a problem. I got the video right here. We all know that sometimes a canopy might float. Different circumstances, things might change. So tell the video person where you want them. As a tandem instructor, hey, it's like, I want you over here. Yeah, we got to walk 50 more yards, but the winds are blowing. There's a little bit turbulent area over here, and I just want my own section right there. Or tell them, it's like, hey, put me away from everyone else, all right? As a video person, explain to them. It's like, yeah, I might land in front of you, but what happens if I go long and you lined me directly up with another canopy? Or you have another canopy in front of you and the winds pick up and now I have to land short, all right? Let that video person know what kind of lane that you want to give you a lane and instruct them where to go. And bottom line, when it comes down to it, you are the tandem instructor, the tandem pilot. Land where is the most safest for you and your passenger. If you have to blow off the camera person and make them walk, run, whatever to try to catch that landing, then they just got to do so, all right? But better for them to run up and catch a good landing than them have a front row seat to a bad landing. All right, conclusions. Evaluate yourselves on your gear, training, and conditions. All right? How many tandem instructors here pack their own tandem rigs? Phenomenal. How many tandem instructors here, if I hand you a tandem rig, say, I just finished this in my most record time of 5 minutes. All right? How many of you guys are going to be like, awesome, take it and go? All right? Hopefully not. All right? You guys heard a lot of the statistics when it came to, you know, some malfunctions or problems, all right, to solve were mainly due to packing. Take the time to educate your packers. Take the time to watch your packers. All right? I can guarantee you from when a packer first starts to when mid or even at the end of the season, they're not packing the same. I know when I learned how to flat pack, flake the nose, flake the tail, roll the nose, and go on. It was a process. It was how I was taught. It's not that it was wrong, but to me that was too many steps. Why am I going to flake the nose, then go to the tail, then go back to the nose? I'd flake the tail first, then go to the nose so I can flake it, and then roll it, fold it, and all that kind of stuff. They make changes, all right, whether it's to fit their time or try to get you in the air as fast as possible. It's just a reality of the game, all right? Everyone kind of veers off a little bit. I veer off, you guys veer off, but that's why we're here to get everyone back on the same sheet of music. And even if the same sheet of music, hey, maybe I didn't veer whatsoever, all right? I am straight as arrow. I know exactly what my doctrine is. And I know exactly what's going on. And then 2 years down the road, something gets better, all right? I pick up the new foam that comes out. It's the new hotness. It's a little bit safer, has this, has that, all right? That's also why we're here, to keep us doing the right thing and to make those small changes for the better. All right, so help your packers do the same thing. Help each other or your other instructors do it. If you guys aren't having a quick morning brief as to how, you know, the operations needs to go, maybe you should. If you're not having those quarterly, you know, questions, maybe you should. If you're not in the plane thinking about everything that would go wrong versus right, maybe you should start doing that. I constantly, for altitude and everything else, and I'm multitasking, so I'm still talking to my passenger, still having a good time, whatever. But I'm thinking about, okay, I'm at this altitude, something goes wrong, I know exactly when I'm hooking up and getting out. On the exit, I'm expecting my video person to slip, miss the count, whatever. So when I get out, I'm clearing my airspace to make sure he's not there, throwing my drogue, checking my drogue. I'm thinking of all the things that can go wrong, all right? Because most of the time everything goes right. That's easy muscle memory. You need to start training yourself and thinking about all the things that can go wrong, so that way when you do have that complication, you know, we have that successful deployment of the reserve. We have that successful decision making early versus later if you have to, you know, land in an alternate area because you had those plans. Ultimately, you're only as good as your last walk away from the landing, or your last, you know, get away from however the landing was. And hopefully it was a nice walk away. Have the best jump in the world, but when that tandem passenger, all right, walks away without that desirable, you know, landing or that fun experience, that's when the industry really starts to hurt themselves, all right? And it's not just, you know, we had the class right before on the professionalism. All right, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole, but think about it like this. They have the best jump in the world, walk away just fine, but you were the problem that put a bad taste in their mouth, all right? So it all kind of comes together, but again, walking away from that good landing. Demand professionalism from each other, from yourself, all right? Who here still looks at videos about themselves, all right? And not to be like, that was cool, all right? Whenever I look at a video about myself, obviously the people that are in this room, we are the professionals, we are the leaders, the instructors, all right? Half the time, and you can be honest amongst yourself, when I look at a video, or if you look at a video about yourself, it's, how is, you know, my coworker or my peer going to just judge me? I judge myself probably even harder than they would, because I try to find everything wrong, or I try to set the good or the correct, the right example. All right? So if you're not doing that, if you're not looking at some of your videos, you should. If one of the best ways to help someone without even like really helping them is like say, hey, look at a video, do a self-assessment, and ask one question. Would that jump, would that landing, would that, you know, experience, would that pass a tandem course? If it would, continue on, just make yourself, you know, those fine refinements, the better ways of making yourself better. Sorry, I got tongue twisted there. All right, stay current, staff meetings, and of course respect it. And also remember, currency is great, but it does not replace proficiency. All right? You can be all the current in the world, but not proficient. All right? And of course, no 90 degrees, especially under 500 feet. Keep the canopy above you for those safe canopy landings. Can we land into the wind? Yes, preferably. Can you land crosswind? Absolutely. Some drop zones you either have, there's only one or two ways to go, either this way or that way, no matter what the winds are. Can you land downwind? Absolutely. All these different ways you can do safely. Ultimately, yes, we want to land into the wind, but more importantly, regardless of the direction, we want that canopy over our head, and we want to have 100% of an effective flare. All right. Unless there's any fast questions, sorry I went about 10 minutes over. I assure you I cut out a lot of stuff because, again, there's that food and everything else. We will be here for a while. If you guys do have questions, whether it's asking me or anyone, ask someone. All right. Get the conversation started with your younger jumpers. Get the conversations started with the experience. Both need each other to make it a safe industry. The old definitely need the new, and the new, you know, doctrines, the new way things are changing and everything else. But even those new tandem instructors need to talk to the old, because a lot of times the old knows the reasons why something changed. All right. So I appreciate your guys' time, and look forward to getting to know some of you guys a little bit more, and even talking to you even more. So, appreciate it.